down. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Um, Thank you for joining our session and our discussion right now. I'm hoping everybody's had a nice lunch, and we're going to get going in our first breakout session. So um, I'm going to introduce you to Scott Erlanson. Scott is the founder of Arr-Ee. He's going to tell us a little bit more about that. And he's also going to talk to us about the Cohesion Framework and how that helps drive strategic fitness and impactful architectures. So with that said, I will turn it over to Scott, and please welcome Scott Erlanson.
Thank you. I was told this is what. Gee, thanks. It is my pleasure to follow Neil. Wow. I don't know how I got this slot, but buckle up. I didn't go to college as long as he did. I don't have a pedigree like he does, so I'm glad you're here anyway. So welcome. We're going to talk a little bit about something that's near and dear to my heart, the Cohesion Framework. And really, it's kind of a response to my 15 years of being in a position to try to sell and motivate and use business architecture to achieve outcomes. And so we'll get more into that. And I thought, what better way
everyone.
to start?
Hello. Can you hear me? This is not coming through, is it?
This is good. I'm like, can you hear me? Wow. Anyway, I thought, what better way to kick this off? You know, it's early January. It's resolution season. We'll talk about what my wife shared with me earlier this week. And she's like, you look a little bit like Santa Claus. We better do something about that, buddy. And she's a nurse. So hopefully it wasn't just, we're not looking as good as we could in baggy suits. Hopefully she's worried about my health. And so this quest is like, okay, yep, I could probably lose 20 pounds and, yeah, we'll go there. So it brings me to the healthy living paradox. I know exactly what I need to do. I know what works, right? I gotta buckle down. I gotta amend my wayward ways. I should exercise a little bit more. And I'm probably going to routinely ignore that, in the long run, because, outside of my wife not chirping me, the value is long-tailed and the cost is immediate, right? I have to do something now for the promise of some hopeful value down the road. Probably not going to happen, and quite honestly. So when you see me next year, I bet I look something like this, unfortunately. Business architecture has the same healthy living paradox, right? Turns out transformation is really, really hard. Pick your source, pick your stat, 70% odds, you're not going to succeed. On top of that, we have wild changes going on to the externalities that affect your customers and your stakeholders' needs and expectations of you. Political, economic, sociological, technological, regulatory, market-based, pick it, it's changing at breakneck pace, right? So transformation's hard, the world's changing, it's getting harder. And the markets kind of care about this stuff. They're not rewarding companies that can't adapt, evolve, and transform. Companies aren't rewarding people that can't lead the successful transformation. So it's hard, it's getting harder, and it matters. What are we to do? We know business architecture, if we hit pause between strategy and execution and inserted a nice healthy dose of business architecture, we know that is the secret sauce, right? That's why we're all here. I believe that 100%, but the benefits are long-term and opaque, and the cost is real and right now. And so we kind of have a conundrum. So let's take a look at that. Why? I get to talk to a lot of people about, business architecture over 15 years. And from the stakeholder perspective, here's what I've heard. Business architecture is not understood. Talk to 10 business architects and you're going to get 10 different stories about what business architecture is and why. And in fact, we won't do it, but think about your why for business architecture just amongst your, individually. And I'll pause for a moment. I bet some of these words are what's going through your head as we start to think, and we won't read them. You know, this was AI summarizing Wendy Keene. So, you know, forgive me, Wendy, wherever you might be in Norway. You know, so I'm betting these words kind of go through your head in terms of why for business architecture. And what I'm here to assert is, like, we've been trained and conditioned to believe these things. We have invested the time to understand why these things are true, and I believe each and every one of them. I'll defend them to the core. That said, your stakeholders have not invested the time. These words are nice. They're like motherhood and apple pie. They are non-starters. This will not sell business architecture in the real world. So it's bad. So it's not understood. It's too slow. We talk, you know, all those wonderful words are about a final state of business architecture that requires a ton of work on our part as architects and a ton of organizational change on the other part to make it work. So our value realization for business architecture is a mature, well-integrated practice, and that's a problem. Too much change. Like, business architecture, it's not, like Neil said, it's not about creating the documents. It's about using that codified knowledge to have new and better conversations up and down the organization about our strategic future. And man, that's a lot of change. We've run our business for 10, 50, 150 years. We never needed this before. Why do I need this new perspective now to drive this? We're too inwardly focused. We can be a little bit precious, myself included. You know, we're very fond of what we do and how we do it. We like to talk about models and frameworks, and my lunch conversation was, what's an appropriate level 1 capability for this? And it's like, only here could we have that conversation and, you know, and enjoy it. But we're a little precious. The rest of the world doesn't really care about that. You know, let's get to the good stuff. What's the why? And finally, the prize is difficult. If we get somebody's ear, and if we get them to start to believe in those nice words that we had on the front page about why business architecture is important, how do we talk about what it means in dollars and cents? How do we compel somebody to take action? It's darn hard. Thank you, Jeff, for that, by the way. And I have an answer for you. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So, you know, here's the healthy living paradox, you know, for business architecture as I've seen it. And so what I did is I said, we have to reimagine business architecture, and not in terms of what we do. Like, I love how we can go from strategy to business model to experience to value streams to capabilities, operating model. Like, I love the complexity and the depth and the ability to click in and click out organizationally, like phenomenal stuff. So the reinvention is not about what we do as business architects. It's about how we package it and how it's consumed. Like, that to me is the fundamental flaw with business architecture and business architects. And so it led me to, you know, go dark and build the Cohesion Framework, which we'll talk about right now a little bit. You know, my favorite, the S curve, right? It's about evolution or adaptation, however you want to phrase it. Like, again, I'm worried in business architecture land about boxes 1, 2, and 3, right? Very few organizations are at the top of the S curve with business architecture. It's not standardized. It's not codified. People don't know how to engage us largely in the real world. And a little bit of a generalization, but I feel pretty confident in saying it. So we've got to worry about, you know, the different parts of the curve that get us up to that standardized place. So how might we reimagine that? How do we compel people to want to do things differently on the backs of business architecture? The design principle that I came away with as I went through the innovation work on this is, we need business architecture to be high impact when we need it and low impact when we don't need it. So don't demand change. It can't be a huge cost component, right? I want it to work. I want it to work well, and I want to turn it off, and I want to be happily oblivious to you existing in my world other than that. So that was the design principle. And the target that I went to develop around is this idea that an organization's readiness for successful strategy execution is testable. We can identify the issues and obstacles that exist. We can remedy them in relatively short order. So I want to change business architecture with this from being creation of clarity and brokering, a common understanding to, let's use it to do something. I want to test, I want to identify, and I want to remedy. And so that's what I will share with you right now. So we get to the Cohesion Framework. Really pretty logo, thanks to the AI. And what we get is, this was modeled very much after a visit to the physician, right? The testing, the whole experience should be what you get when you go see your doctor. We go in, we have a quick conversation about what's going on. We have, get some baseline stuff. They poke me and they prod me. They take some tests and they come back and say, here's what we see. Let's talk about how we might deal with this and let's start our journey to becoming fit. So in this model, we get something that's very deliberate, very intentional. It's quick, focused, lightweight, everything that business architecture typically is not renowned for. Obviously, in this metaphor, the patient is your organization. The medicine is business architecture itself. And we, as the business architects, get to play the role of provider, right? And our job is to improve strategic fitness of the organization. And it's not a one-time thing. This is not a project. This is, curating an ability to become increasingly better about how we adapt and evolve the organization towards our strategy. If in this overly done medical analogy, metaphor, we have a pathology, right? We have a disease that we're chasing down. And that pathology presents, it's organizational inertia, all the things that are preventing us as an organization from becoming who we need to be. We have general symptoms that we experience, and it's melees, general ineffectiveness, right? I don't execute especially well. We're not good at delivering solutions that scale or meet the needs of our customers or our stakeholders. We're not getting the return on investment that we promised our organization when we lit this project up. We're not good at organizational change management. There's a lot of ways that this presents itself, but what I want to assert or reiterate is these are symptoms, right? Turns out that there's more than a little cottage industry around each and every one of those things. We're product. We're going to stand up a new PMO. We're getting a new strategy. We're doing all these wonderful things. We're just addressing symptoms. It's not going to improve our fitness. It's not going to affect our ability to successfully adapt and evolve. We're just feeling better about it right now. Much like, if I had an underlying symptom and I'm taking ibuprofen, it doesn't hurt right now. It's very much akin. So underneath those symptoms, we get into the core issues, right? We have some combination of a lack of clarity, we have disengaged employees, and we have misallocated resources. And they are present in your organizations. And worse than being present, they conspire with one another. They inflame each other. And it compounds the problems, which give rise, again, to the symptoms that we're rebelling against. Underneath the symptoms, we get to the root cause. And we see them in two broad sweeping categories. We have human gaps and we have systemic gaps. Human gaps are primarily leadership problems. It's the behaviors that get in the way of the organization, that contribute to the inertia rather. And it's change resistance, it's myopic thinking, it's the me first attitude, right? We've all seen it. The systemic gaps, on the other hand, are those things that we believe are well understood and actionable that are integral to our strategic future, but the truth is they're anything but well understood or actionable, right? We can repeat the words, but we don't really know what they mean. We think they're codified and understood, they're anything but. And so while all problems are human problems, I contend that we have to address these systemic needs first, and that can inform the human change. And so that's how the model has been put forth. I'll pause there for a moment. We good? Please interrupt me. All right, so that's our pathology. So continuing in the metaphor of medicine, so now we know what the disease looks like. Now we got to talk about dosing. So we know business architecture is the medicine. How the heck are we going to dose? Here's a riff on Maslow's hierarchy, right? And Maslow put as you all know, the human quest goes from base level needs all the way up to self-actualization, right? Organizationally, what I would suggest is, or what I will assert, is that the pursuit, self-actualization is legacy, right? And it's not, I want to have my company produce the same services and goods forever. It's, I want to create sustained and lasting value for my customers and my stakeholders. So that view of legacy. As with Maslow, each evolutionary state in the hierarchy has a different set of concepts or understandings that are important to that stage. And if not codified, every time we try to move up the pyramid, we're hamstrung and we're going to have to deal with reinterpretation of this stuff that we believe is well understood globally. Does that make sense? We good? All right, perfect. So we can use this, in fact, we do use this to work with an organization to say, okay, where are you on the evolutionary state? Tell me in the choose your own adventure style, where are we right now? Oh, we're improving. So I can use that to say, okay, we're currently improving. We're looking at moving up, perhaps, we're talking about transformation or that's a very sexy word. So we want to move up the hierarchy. I can go and look for all, the existential codified knowledge that the organization should have to test, to see if it is indeed present and if it is codified or not. And if not, then we start to understand what work we have in front of us. So that's how we seek to dose. Administering treatment. There are 6 things organizations need in order to be successful in strategy execution. And from bottom up, because I must have some sort of dyslexia when I create this, it's awesome. We need clear strategic intent. Yep. We need to have our leaders aligned. Yep. We need to make good use of data in our decision making. Yep. We need a robust activation framework, saying yes at the right time to the right things for the right amount of money. Yep. We need cultural resilience and employee buy-in. Yep. We have to deliver change and we have to sustain change. And as I talk to leaders, they're like, yeah, we need that. I get that. Simple list, small list, thank you. And we're working on a couple of those things already. So I feel really good about what I'm doing. Thank you for confirming that we're going down the right path. If we paint this picture a little differently, we start to get a very different look. If you imagine it instead of a list of 6 things, that are discrete and independent, and paint them instead as a Venn diagram, and start to look at the interrelationship between these things, we see the complexity that's loose in our organization, right? We now have 20 interdependent concerns instead of a list of 6 things. We can use this kind of a view, this is my prescription for what I believe the right answer is. That's not important, but build this with your organization or something equivalent to get their words on it, so you don't have to sell, this idea that this is right. But we can use this to start to target, where do we want to begin this journey? Our journey to becoming more strategically fit. We can't fix it all at once, right? It's impossible. It's a non-starter. So where do we want to target, and how are we going to introduce that into the organization, and how do we use that then to plant a flag and claim victory. Are we dancing so far? Good? Questions, thoughts, comments? Interrupt? Talk too fast? A lot of coffee? Yes. To drive a decision. So, yeah, so this, it's more about, well, let's talk about that. Here we are. So here's our protocol. So the way we use it is we go in and we do a baseline, right? So we figure out who we are as an organization, where we are in the Venn diagram. We do an assessment to test to see what is codified and well understood and actionable, and what is not. So capabilities, strategy, business model, value creation, all the things that are near and dear to us. We come back with our diagnoses. And then to answer your question specifically, how do we use it is, business architecture requires change for it to be valuable. Like dropping off, a beautiful diagram and saying, peace out, we're good. It's a non-starter. So this is the way to begin that change conversation and get pre-commitment from your leadership team about where we're going to begin the journey of getting better. So that specifically. Oh. I just thought of that. Sorry. Yep.
They may want to look for the fewest intersections. Let me clutch something that has two as opposed to five.
Yep.
But if I'm in an organization that has seen the impact of going all in,
yep.
If I've got an early adopter, do they want to go to the ones where I've got the densest impact, and I'm going to peel the Band-Aid off and really try to make incremental wins across as many dimensions?
Yep.
You tend to hear or find.
Well, the counsel I give, I'll go that way. I hear a lot of things like, that's way too complex is usually what I really hear. And it's like, well, that's why this stuff is hard. We have to triangulate against three things: need, opportunity, and readiness. And so, I can help frame the need. I can say, here's what's missing in your organization, right? Here's what we found when we did our assessment. We can talk about opportunity and the value that's going to happen in each of those, each of the circles has a unique value proposition to becoming a better org. Readiness, though, I can't comment on, right? That requires, that's a person thing. That's a leadership thing. That's a, but it's very valuable. Does that helpful? Yeah.
They should, could, and would. That's what those three are.
Yeah. That's how I talk to my kids. It doesn't work real well. So, other thoughts or questions?
Just because we heard Neil
Yeah.
together, right? For one, I think Neil was channeling your scoring model.
Yeah.
Where he said, if you can take the irrational.
Yeah.
And give it weight.
Yeah.
That can allow you to do trade-off analysis across different options of should.
Yeah.
You can normalize table stakes across different resource owners, parts of the organization.
100%. And I would argue it front loads the commitment for change, right? We're not just brokering clarity. We want to propel different conversations so that we can act different. We want to ask different questions. We want to answer different questions. We want to evolve the organization, intentionally, as opposed to dropping stuff off and hoping people understand and get the lift out of it that they need and act accordingly. Like, it's not going to happen by chance, is my experience. And as business architects, we can't rely on chance for our work to be valuable and instrumental in creating the outcomes. Back to Neil. Yes. Perfect. So I will be more diligent. I apologize. Oh, yeah. Okay. apologies for those online. So back to the protocol, again, very front-loaded commitment to the organizational change. Organizational change is implicitly important for success in using business architecture, right? It's not about us. We're not precious. We're here to help create new and different conversations up and down the organization about how we evolve and why we evolve and what it means to the org. I think that horse is beaten to death. There are two more things I want to talk to in this real quick tour de force of Cohesion. One is this idea of value. This was not part of how I came up with it. It's something I stumbled on only recently. A gentleman named Alex Hermosi has written some books. He's a marketing guru, and he has this simple value equation that I have found absolutely profound. And basically it says, take dream outcome times the perceived likelihood of achieving it, and divide it by your costs. So your delays, your effort, your sacrifice. And at first I was like, oh, it's way too simple. It can't be that easy. But if you take my weight loss journey and let's take a look at that, right? My dream outcome, I need to lose 20 pounds. Perceived likelihood, oh, it's pretty freaking low. If I were being honest, and I'm pretty honest, it's not a high probability. Delay, oh yeah, it would take me 9 good months if I really buckled down. Effort, oh yeah, I've got to reappropriate time. I have to develop some new habits. I have to unlearn some things. Sacrifice, oh yeah, all the things that make winter in Alexandria worth living, they're going to change too. So, my value number with this organic weight loss is pretty low. Small numerator, big denominator. It's a non-starter. It ain't going to happen. GLP-1, if I was really interested in losing that 20 pounds, let's see, same outcome, likelihood of achieving, oh, off the charts, right? It's clinically proven. I can lose 20 pounds. I know I can. Delay, yeah, it's going to take a little time. Effort, nope. Sacrifice, I have to give myself a shot. I don't like that idea, but my value equation on GLP-1 compared to losing weight the organic way different. And it's like, holy cow, this value equation really, really works. Now take the next one, now it's oral. I just heard Wegovy's got a pill that you're going to take. So same numerator, denominator, even better, so I expect, on the basis of this formula, we can expect Wegovy to go off the charts in 2026. The real, the takeaway for us on this though, is, in the bluish purple, like people love immediacy, right? We have to cater to this. We have to pander to it. We have to get, like, they use the idea of buyer's remorse, people pay me to do this, but inside an organization, if we have a business architecture practice, there's still buyer's remorse, right? I am staking my future. I'm betting my professional self that this is going to be a better bet than doing it a different way. Like there is definitely a purchase being made, whether you're writing a check or it's an emotional purchase. But we have to pander to this. We need to be quick. We need to show value. And the most important part, it's perceived value, right? We are never going to do a project twice, one with business architecture, one without. We are never going to be able to say business architecture gave you a return of, 14%, over what would have happened otherwise. So I think that's important. But let's talk about sizing the prize. How might we get to a place of understanding what dollars and cents means for taking a business architecture approach? In a very non-imaginative way, I partition the organization into 3 portfolios: run, grow, transform. Run is, it's everything. It's rent, it's utilities, it's salary, it's licenses, it's everything we need to keep the lights on. Grow is incremental improvement, continuous improvement efforts, become more efficient, more effective. Maybe a little bit in fine-tuning experience. Transform obviously is let's fundamentally go after our business model change, strategy change, different customers, et cetera. If we partition the world thusly and think about the budgets, we can say, there is, for each portfolio, as your finance team looks at approving projects or increasing spend, there's a hurdle for internal rate of return that's implicit, right? The run hurdle is probably 4%, small. The grow hurdle is probably 12 to 15%. Transform hurdle should be in excess of 30%, right? Capital intensive, long-tailed, risky. So we've got these different hurdle rates. And what that allows us to do is start to say, oh, okay, based on our annual budget, here's the kind of juice that we should get out of the squeeze, or what we could expect out of it. If we then think about each of those portfolios and talk about our expectation for success, or the expectation for failure, even worse, we can start to see the amount of waste that's built into our system. So, run is probably going to succeed at 95%. Grow is probably at a 20% or 80%. Transform is 75% failure. Now we can subtract those two, and we can model waste in a way that your CFO will not frown at, and you'll be able to start to say, the cost of not being fit as an organization resembles this. And the work that I've done recently with an organization, it was probably in the order of 4.5% of annual budget is the amount of waste that we attributed. Not exact science, but actual numbers that people can get behind and say, holy cow, and what I'd like to reiterate is this is every year, right? This fitness is not a one-time cost. This is annual waste paid ad infinitum, So, 1 year, it's only $4.5 million. Holy cow, over 5 years starts to become real money on a modest budget. So there we are. Questions, thoughts, comments? I pounded through that very quickly. I apologize. Concerns? Excitement? Yes. Oh.
Here.
Well, you can always restate the question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, hello, people online. Have you thought about the Venn diagram 6 ingredients in relevance to the 3 portfolio subcomponents?
That scares me.
It's hard math, right? But
Well,
where does your gut go?
People have that Venn diagram takes a little bit to get people comfortable with, because it's busy, and adding 3 more components to the Venn diagram. I dig what you're saying, but I'm afraid to
Heat map it.
Yeah, we certainly could. We certainly could. But again, I'm sorry? All the dependencies do have an impact. Absolutely. And what's important is a relative impact, right? And I don't think, I'll weigh in. I don't think personally we need the scientific answer to know that this intersection is worth, 1/3 of our waste. It might be interesting. If they're not ready to change, they're not going to change. They're not going to make use of it. So, it may be a neat tool to beat somebody over the head, but, how'd you like to be the leader to say, wow, this is on your shoulders, pal, and, you're costing us, 1/3 of our waste annually? Not a very popular conversation, perhaps, as I think out loud. So yeah, super fun. So wrap up. Hopefully, as we've pounded through this view of business architecture and how to reframe it, you can see something that is more relatable. We can tell a story to a stakeholder about what we're doing. It's familiar, right? It's a cadence that I understand. It's quick time cycle. An assessment probably takes 4 weeks. right? The remediation probably takes 10 weeks after that. So we're talking bite-sized chunks, actionable, perceived value. We're front-loading the change. Like these are things that the organization can see and feel, and you can market and demonstrate, the wonderful things that business architecture does for your organizations, your clients. Arr-Ee is a funny name for an organization. I don't have a marketing team, and that's why you get names like this. And the domain name was available, so go figure. If you want to talk, if you want to collaborate, if you want to dig deeper, please ping me. Like I love this stuff. I am super proud, but would love to continue the conversation with any and all of you. Yeah, this was not Neil, but hopefully it was a good way to come off of your lunchtime. So thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you. Questions from online before we take a break and prepare for our next session on the horizon? We'll be starting the next session in this room at 1:30. So.
The experience of applying the. So the nonprofit we're working with for the Architecting for Good right now is the National Student Exchange, and awesome, amazing mission. What they are is U.S. based, but they have actually Canada, Puerto Rico. So let's say North America based, like a study abroad, but only inside the country. So that was a weird way is much more eloquent way to say that. But they're a program that runs in universities all over the country, and they arrange exchanges for students that are not doing study abroad to completely different countries. They're really leveraging the countries and the colleges and the members inside this country. So it's a little bit easier in my opinion, a little bit easier access to a lot of students, a little bit easier and appropriate for some students more than others who maybe can't take off for Barcelona, but they can certainly go to get a cultural experience in another part of this country. A lot of them go to Hawaii, by the way, but because they get that same experience. But what would you just say? What did you just say? Cleveland. Yeah. Well, but truly, so we love this thing because what happens is if a student doesn't have, if you're a biology major in Minnesota, at the University of Minnesota, you really don't have an opportunity to learn about sea life. You don't have, you don't get to go and do ocean animals unless you have a way to do an exchange to Florida or California or Texas or other places that have those kind of actual programs. So it is an opportunity to fill out your education. And so we really love it. Stephen Clark and Scott and I are the sort of the lead coaches on the Architecting for Good program, and we're going to talk about it later in a session. But we have been applying this, and that's the part that I think is most interesting to this conversation. If Scott wants to talk about maybe how it's gone, and like I said, we'll do it in another session where we talk about really as business architects coming and saying, and your head spinning when you leave the room and you find out this 70-year-old organization got a long legacy, needs to completely reinvent themselves to deal with today's geopolitical and declining placements. And, just like any other company, they need to be entrepreneurs about what they're doing. They need to understand their revenue models. They need to understand who their customer segments are in a way that maybe they haven't thought about them before. And all of the way that we apply, one of the things that they were talking about this morning, or that Neil, and one of the questions was around, how about the standards? Mihal asked it actually, how about the standards? How about the discipline? How about the frameworks? How about the maps and the models that we as architects really like to employ? This is one of those evolutions of the model that I really, really like. I mean, whether I like cohesion or not, I like that we're being entrepreneurs and innovating on the things we know how to do. And I mean, that's the thing, is finding new ways to apply what we know how to do. What came to my mind, and always comes to my mind when I heard the discussion today in the question and answer with Neil, was we have to understand the game of, we have to understand the game board, the chessboard, right? We have to understand it. We need to know the maps, the models, the processes, the structure, the framework that's available to us. And then we can, then from there, we learn how to play the game. So how do you strategize using the tools and what's happened here, what Scott has done here is take the core, take the fundamentals are all there, but how do we apply it in a way and expand our thinking and abstract our thinking to say, we're going to appeal and apply this to people where they are, or to the need that we have. We can't just rely on we never want to rely on dogma. We're not going to get there. And that's, again, it was resonating from Neil's talk. I don't know. I just had to say that.
Yeah,
sometimes I just have to say things, and you happen to be the room I was in. So anyway, you can wrap that up. But
to me, it's about helping your stakeholders to understand why it's valued, right? Like, again, we have had the luxury of being trained and conditioned to understand how these things work and why they're valuable. And we accept it at face value because of that familiarity. Again, your stakeholders are not going to accept that at face value, right? And so our job is, I think we have to do a better job selling than we have to do modeling. And that is a very difficult thing.
Well,
we'll talk about that on Friday.
Selling, marketing, promoting,
100%.
And
Yep.
consulting,
Yep.
right? This
Yep.
is why it's valuable to you. What were you going to say?
What their answers were.
Catch the last three words.
Yeah.
Asked if you could provide an example of how you use this at that organization.
So NSE was founded in 1968. I remember that because that's my birth year. So that's easy. We use this to say, okay, where are we evolutionary wise as an organization? And they put themselves in operate. They're trending towards thinking about improving the experience that they deliver to their stakeholders, but they're only thinking about it right now. So, but we're squarely in operate. And so what that, we use that to go back and kick the tires on the organization to say, okay, we're not jumping into a capability model, right? That's not what's important when we're talking about, the originate and operate phase. That comes later. So we went to the business model canvas and we went hard on the business model and the wheels fell off. It's like, holy cow, fell off.
Because they answered the question, where are you on this? And they said, we're operating. We're really good at that. And our question, after we started taking them through the business model canvas and our tools to understand why do you exist? What do you need to make that happen?
Who are your stakeholders?
Is that the question that we asked as nicely as possible is, why? What are you operating? So you're really good at something, but is it what you were supposed to be doing? We also discovered that they didn't understand their customer segments
at all.
They built an operating machine because they're operators. The kind of leaders that are in place are operators, and they need to have a little bit more vision. I mean, this is us talking,
Yep.
not how we talk to them. But but we did say these things in the nicest possible way. But the idea that you're building an operating machine to serve who you think should want to buy your stuff or buy, use, consume, instead of who actually does or needs to, that was the biggest aha. I mean, it blew the roof off the building, right? And they're still trying to figure out what to do with that.
And the big travesty, tiny annual budget, huge amount of commitment to this project to improve things that they probably ought not be improving right now.
And also, tiny annual budget because they're leaving everything on the table.
Right.
So, anyway, so it's like the beauty of business architecture and all the things we have to think about that we get to think about in real life. You know, it's not just make a capability and then run that capability. That's not, and do the model, right? Do the modeling. It's real life. It's like, wait, what about the changing landscape of higher education in the US? What about read the news? What are you going to do? Right? You're going to go completely away is what's going to happen unless you do something different. That opportunity to have, I mean, that's the joy of knowing what we know how to do for people. Anyway,
The other
I
thing
hear
I'll
clapping.
say,
Go ahead.
just, the value that we've seen of it, if you put 3 business architects loose with NSE, they're going to approach it 4 different ways, right? Here we have a codified approach. We have a story for how we're going to engage. Everything is purposeful, it's intentional. Is it absolutely perfect? No, nothing is. But it gives us a way to talk about what we're doing, why we're doing it, how it's going to result in value for NSE. Focus, absolutely, and tell a story. Yep. So, yeah. Hey, yeah, Yahoo. Yep. Who knew it was needed? Oh, I did. Any other questions, thoughts? We have 7 minutes. Oh, no. Oh, tear down and set up. All right, so I'm getting kicked out is what I hear. All right. What? Oh, appreciate you all. Thank you.